Please, yes.
Would you give us your analysis of the current situation and prognosis of the Palestinian predicament and the struggle, and how you see Palestine in the next 10 years?
Well, thank you so much. First of all, I think you do realize I don't need to explain to you. I'm sure you're following the matter. But we are at this very moment subjected to three terrible war crimes. The war crime of genocide, of course, the war crime of collective punishment, including starving people in Gaza, and the war crime of ethnic cleansing. And this is not just a threat, it's an action which is taking place, including so far destroying 4 Palestinian cities completely in Gaza, erasing them to the ground and displacing all their population. We're talking about Beit Hanun, Jabalia camp, and of course Beit Lahia. And hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced. But actually 90% of the people of Gaza are displaced and stuck in a very small strip in Mawasi, and the middle areas. So and there is every chance that Israel could expand the total ethnic cleansing from the north to that city as well. So it's terrible 3 war crimes. We're not inventing that, because even the International Criminal Court admitted it. And that's why Netanyahu and Gallant were accused of war crimes being war criminals. And the strangest thing is that the United States government is planning to impose sanctions on the judges and the prosecutors of the International Criminal Court. That is a different issue, but it gives you a very clear indication of the status of the world today. The problem with our case is that we are now, in addition to this terrible massacre, the fact that we lost almost 9% of our population in Gaza, who are either killed or injured, or imprisoned, or kidnapped, or missing under the rubble. And the number could be bigger, actually. Besides that, 9% is a huge number. I mean, it's not a small thing. The other day I was debating at BBC, and some guy, I don't know whether he was British or American, was saying, no, 90% of the Palestinian people are still alive, so you can't call it genocide. I mean, well, we have 13 million Jewish people today alive. Does that mean genocide did not take place during the Second World War? So it's very strange argumentation. And Gaza has been subjected to terrible crime. I mean, in addition to the fact that 9% were killed or injured, and if you apply that to a country like the United States of America, that proportionally, you would be talking about 32 million people killed or injured. 32 million in less than 15 months. And the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza alone is larger proportionally than all Americans killed in all American wars since independence. Maybe this makes the American people understand what we are talking about. And the problem today is that we have a fascist Israeli government, which is capable of doing any crime. And to be honest with you, it's not just a fascist Israeli government. It's a very powerful fascist tendency inside the Israeli society. A very strange phenomena that we didn't witness since long time, maybe since the rise of Nazism in Germany. And I say that this is dangerous not only for Palestinians, but also for Jewish people themselves. And there is no internal mechanism, no internal constraint in Israel that could stop this deterioration. In reality, what happened during the war since October 7th, and before that in the West Bank and since Netanyahu came to power, and we don't need to convince you with the views of Netanyahu. All you need to buy his book, which is called Bibi, and you will find out exactly what he thinks. And the problem is that this establishment and what happened since October 7th has brought back the Palestinian issue to its roots. For 30 years, Palestinians in general, and maybe the Palestinian Authority, was believing or had the illusion that there can be a compromise with the Zionist movement. And the name of the compromise was two-state solution. The message we got since Netanyahu came to power is that there is no place for two-state solution, no place for compromise. And the other illusion that prevailed was that the United States of America could become the mediator. And again, this war has shown that the United States of America is absolutely biased to Israel. It has no intention and no evidence that it can even try to play a role of a mediator. We've seen $40 billion of weapons and mass destructive arms to Israel. What was thrown on Gaza during this war is no less than 86,000 tons of explosives. That is about 37 kilograms of explosives for each man, woman, and child. And most of it came from the United States of America. So these two illusions are gone, they're finished. And that means we are still witnessing in Israel the same settler colonial project. The settler colonial project that initiated the Nakba in 1948 and displaced 70% of the Palestinian people and stole our land. When Israel was established, Palestinians owned at least 82% of the land of the Eretz of the state of Israel, as it was called. Today they own only 3.5%. And the same process now is happening in the West Bank. Same exact process of stealing and theft, of land annexation, of expansion of settlements. So what are the perspectives that we're going to have, especially in light of the elections of Mr. Trump? The two biggest risks are ethnic cleansing in general, both in West Bank and Gaza. And the other risk is that this government might proceed with American approval or consensus to annex all of the West Bank. Finally, I want to alert you to the fact that we have 4 laws that were passed in Israel. One before the 7th of October, which was a law that says that the right of self-determination on the land of Israel, Eretz Israel, which means historical Palestine, is exclusive for Jewish people. And that law, like the 3 other laws I will tell you about, were approved not only by the government parties, but also by Israeli opposition parties. The second law was that there will be no Palestinian state, or Palestinian state will not be allowed to exist. And the third law that they are trying to pass is that if there is any agreement that allows giving up part of Israeli land, which includes, of course, Golan Heights, which were annexed by Israel, it would require the approval of 80 members of the Knesset out of 120. And then there is the law that eliminated or tries to eliminate the presence of UNRWA here, which is an attack not only on the right of refugees of return, but more than that, it's an attack on the possibility of people's steadfastness here, since so many people depend on humanitarian assistance and and the system of health and education provided by UNRWA. And UNRWA is the largest provider of humanitarian aid today in Gaza. So these are very clear, also very dangerous laws. What worries me most is not all of that, but what worries me most is still the absence of Palestinian internal unity and the continuation of internal division, which has taken very severe forms at these days, especially in what's happening in Jenin and what's happening in here even local. من الزبرات والطلع كيف في شيء but of factions. I mean, you have in Ireland, you have more parties than we have in Palestine or in any other country. So yes, we only have 14. And many of them are small groups. Those who record in if there are elections will not exceed 5 or 6. So it's not the number of factions. It's the issue of it's the issue. The division is because of two things. First of all, it's about the strategy and the vision, the political vision, and. Excuse me, this is the wife of Abu Safiya from Kamal Adwan. So it's the difference. The main cause of the division are two things. First of all, it's a division between those who still believe in Oslo Agreement and in the two illusions that I mentioned to you, and those who believe that we cannot survive without struggling for our rights. Basically, that's resistance. The second thing is that there was a fight or a competition over the authority by Hamas and Fatah. But in this case, the second reason does not exist anymore because practically there is no Palestinian authority. There is no Palestinian authority, neither in Gaza nor in the West Bank. They are both under occupation. So you cannot speak really about a true authority. It's an authority, as Abbas himself says, an authority without authority. So that's why I think we are facing a situation.
Hello.
We are facing the situation where we still have the division, but the root causes of divisions are not there. But Israelis would like us to see us divided, and they try to use every maneuver possible to push Palestinians towards internal conflict, because that makes us weaker. Unity is the key to our strength. But I say that today it's not just about becoming stronger. I say today the issue of unity is a matter of life or death for Palestinian people.
Please take the call if you. Please don't worry about it.
No, they will call again, no problem. It's not that we're not answering. They are not.
Get the line.
If you need to step out or anything, shoot. Hello. وعليكم السلام. هلا. تفضل. دكتور.
If you want to. No problem. Like if you have to step up. Yeah. You're talking about the Israeli divide and conquer here.
The classical colonialist approach. Right. Divide and conquer, of course. Yeah.
Works in the eye, I suppose. Yours everywhere.
Sure. Right.
It's not broke, don't fix it.
Can I ask a question about the relationship between the United States and Israel? Because this is my show of a lot. There's a school of thought that argues that Israel is controlling the U.S., and there's another school that says no, the U.S. is using Israel. What's your stance?
Both.
What would you say?
The United States has a strategic alliance with Israel to serve its own colonial interest. And its economic interest and its strategic interest in the Middle East. We know exactly what attracts the United States to the Middle East. It's not our beautiful Arabic language. It's the oil and the strategic position, and now the economic competition with China, and so there is a particular interest here, and the United States feels that Israel is the best servant of its own interest in the region. Actually, it wasn't only the United States. Many colonial powers, since Israel was established, saw in Israel a servant. Now,
Can you tell us how the rest of the world can support you concretely, not simply morally? Or
okay. Let me finish answering the first question, because, as I said, Israel is perceived as a server of colonial powers. A very good example of that is what happened in 1956, when Nasser of Egypt at the time nationalized the Suez Canal, which belonged to Egypt. I mean, he had the right to do what he was. And then France, which was angry at him because of nationalization of the canal, but also because he was supporting anti-colonial struggle in Algeria, France and Britain conspired with Israel to start a war in 1956. And Israel invaded the Sinai and occupied it. And so the change in 1956 is that Britain and France could not help Israel sustain the occupation, because the United States of America at that time, during Eisenhower time, was not very happy with what happened because they were not informed. And also because the United States was practically replacing the British influence in the Middle East. So they let it go. Since then, Ben Gurion said something very important, who was the Prime Minister of Israel. He said, he said, we will never allow this to happen again. And the Zionist, in general, the Zionist movement shifted its main focus to the United States as an ally. And believe me, if tomorrow China becomes the most powerful country in the world, they will try to shift to, although China is not like the others, but so from one side, the United States sees in Israel an ally, but from the other side, Israel has very powerful lobby in the States. And they've become so strong that they are controlling the press. And congressmen like Paul Findlay, who would not side by Israel, could lose their places and positions only in areas where AIPAC does not have strong power. The Congress people can be having an independent voice, or if they are very strong people like Bernie Sanders, whom I met recently. So that's the kind of relationship that exists between Israel and the United States.
Could you tell us a bit more about your meeting with Bernie Sanders? Because his position is...
He became better. And after I met him, he made several very good, better statements. I also met with Senator Van Horn, who also had even better positions. And of course, several Congress people. But we are not as powerful as they are. They have very huge power. I once asked how many lobbyists there are in the Congress. They told me there are 6 lobbyists for the all Arab countries, and about 66 lobbyists for Israel. But we're talking about thousands of people who are working on this issue. Now your question was about
how, in what concrete ways can the world support the Palestinian liberation struggle?
I think two major things. First of all, it is very important for you in your own countries and in your own organizations to explain that what happened in Gaza is not limited to the issue of Palestine. Actually, Gaza became the indicator that exposed the reality of our world.
Yeah.
And that exposed the failure of the international law and the failure of Western governments in protecting international humanitarian law. The fact that Israel was allowed to be above the law and to be exclusive and to be protected from international law, to have impunity, the fact that this is the case actually made people worldwide not believe that there is international. And I think this is the largest harm ever done to the international order after Second World War. So this message is very important, that the behavior towards Israel and allowing it to commit genocide has changed the world.
Yeah.
Second, that Western governments are practicing, not all of them, of course. We know that Spain is different and Ireland is different, etc. But in general, they've practiced the worst form of double standard. What can the world do to us? I think, first of all, demanding the application of international law, that's for sure. Second, go after the genocide criminals. Not only Netanyahu and Gallant, all the generals, all the officers, all the soldiers. And there are proofs. The other day, one soldier had to run away from Brazil because 630 lawyers were going to the court demanding his arrest. I think that's what we need. We need more and more and more and more cases like this to make those who committed war crimes know and believe and feel that they will pay a price. The third thing is that you can be against genocide, but that's not enough. What we need is to translate that position into boycott, divestment sanctions. Boycott, divestment sanctions, not only against Israel, but against any company that donates money to Israel, that donates money to support military establishment in Israel. We do believe that boycott, divestment sanctions is the best method that transform or translate international solidarity into material effect. And at the end of the day, believe me, they will not stop unless they feel that the price of what they do is bigger than the profit they are making.
And anyone?
But also, I think the governments in your countries, many of them are very hesitant. I think there is a lot of need of grassroots pressure on the governments, on members of parliament, on parties. Hold them responsible. Let them know what's going on so that they cannot say we didn't know. That includes, of course, the Japanese government and other governments.
I mean, I have a question, and I won't. But it's a curious question. Because usually we didn't have to ask this question, but how can we also do Arab on Arab advocacy when it's like international law doesn't apply, the Arab governments are more complicit?
What can you do to the Arab governments or the Arab countries?
On Arab advocacy. Like, how can we do advocacy work inside the Arab world? Change governments, people. Are shifting also.
First of all, you should not underestimate how deep and profound the Israeli narrative is penetrating the Arab world. So working on the Palestinian narrative internationally and in the Arab world is very important. That's why I sometimes appear on certain TV stations that maybe I don't like. But I do that because I know that some people in the Arab world, especially in authoritarian positions, listen only to these questions. So I could talk at Al Jazeera 10 times and they wouldn't hear it. But if you say it on other stations, they will hear it. So in my opinion, what we need as Palestinians is a stronger media network. I had to take on myself the responsibility of sending information to international media, to diplomats, but I cannot do that alone. We need a media network. In the second Intifada, we had a very good network called Palestine Monitor. But then everybody stopped supporting us. And we are facing 3 major Israeli establishments that are supported with millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. And now they are allocating $150 million in the Foreign Ministry of Israel for what they call public diplomacy. So who's supporting us? Nobody. It's all voluntary. It's all done by small number of individuals. We need help. We need support for that. And we need to send material and information, not only internationally, but also to the Arab world. Then, the best way of influencing the Arab world is that we cannot go and fight with all Arab governments. We Palestinians, we have enough fights to do. It has to be done by their people. So connecting with the parties, with the parliaments, with the grassroots movement, with social movements, with civil society is the best way of proceeding. And civil society has been the most powerful element in general, but also in the Arab world in providing support to Palestine. Of course, I'm not talking about Yemen, which is
very amazing. Will you tell us your view on the Israeli meaning of the Jewish state? I mean, if you think of Israel not as a state, but also as a movement, then after the war on Gaza and after improvement of the relation with Saudi Arabia, is there any possibility that Israel is going to be stable and will come some kind of peace among Arab and in the region?
No.
So how then, if it is no, then does it not mean alarm against the countries around Israel, in the sense that today Palestine and tomorrow those countries?
I say that all the time. And you don't need to go far. All you need is to look at Israeli maps. The map that many Israeli soldiers carry on their shoulders in that is the map of Greater Israel, which includes all of Palestine, all of Jordan, most of Lebanon, Syria, Iraq till the Euphrates River, parts of Saudi Arabia, and everything that is east of Nile River. That's what they carry. That's what Smotrich believes in. When he was in France, after he became Minister of Finance, 2 months after, he gave a lecture in France. He was standing behind a podium which included Israel, including Jordan, all of Jordan. The governments don't understand that. Not only they don't understand, they don't want to go into confrontation with Israel. They're very weak. They're afraid. They're frightened. And many of them are dependent on American will. So they are afraid of losing. I mean, each of them thinks if I go in the different direction, they will replace me with my brother or my father or my sister or my cousin or somebody else from or outside the whole system. That's how they feel. So the problem is that there is a gap between people's feeling and government's feeling. And that's the dilemma we live in, and because we don't have democracy. You see, the Arab peoples are with us. The Irish people are with us. But the Irish people, because there is democracy in Ireland, they could change the policy of their government. The Spanish prime minister cannot do anything without considering the opinion of his people. But the governments we have, including in Palestine, have no elections. We haven't had elections since 2016. 20 years ago, exactly, 20 years ago, we had our last presidential elections. In which I participated. I don't know if you know that. I competed with the president. But then they canceled the election. So that's the problem. But that doesn't mean it's a hopeless case, because whether they like it or not, Israel now is clearly saying they want to change the map of the Middle East. What does that mean? It's not just normalization with the Arab countries to liquidate the Palestinian issue. It's Netanyahu now believes he's the leader of an imperialist power that will control the Middle East. And he sees only two competitors, Turkey and Iran. That's why you see he's obsessed with Iran. They keep talking about Iran, as if Hamas is an extension of Iran, or Palestinians in the West Bank are provoked by, no. But the reality, the issue here is Palestine, not Iran. Before Iran was before the Islamic Revolution in Iran was the closest ally of Israel. Actually, the best two allies of Israel were the three best allies were Turkey, Iran, and South Africa.
Yeah. South Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister of South Africa in the 60s said Israel is like us, an apartheid state. Proudly, he was saying that. So now the regime's changed there, but at that time, Israel used to say this is not a Palestinian issue, it's an Arab issue. And we are in fight with Egypt, and then with Syria, and then with Iraq. Saddam is the problem. Syria was the problem. Once they finished with all of that, now it's Iran. Maybe tomorrow it will become Azerbaijan, I don't know. But the key point is that Israel is trying to distract the attention from the core issue, which is Palestinian people. Why? Because once you mention Palestine, you will expose their theft, you will expose their colonialism, you will expose their apartheid. They cannot hide it. Even President Carter, who passed away just recently, unfortunately, he wasn't like that when he was president. But when he finished being president and started to learn, I remember my encounter with him in Atlanta in 2000, I think 2 or 3. I said Israel created apartheid. He almost jumped out of his chair. We were in a conference. And then I told them, let me explain to you, let me show you maps and figures and so on. And when he saw the image of Qalqilia, a city with 60,000 people, besieged by the Israeli wall from all directions, leaving only one little passage, which is a road that is 8 meters width, with a gate that the army could close anytime they want. He started to think, and then he wrote a book called Peace, Not Apartheid. So never underestimate the value and power of the words or of the narrative if it is well described.
I wanted to return into healthcare for a moment. I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Yeping Jay in Canada.
With what?
Dr. Yeping Jay in Canada, who was removed from his position at the Canadian Medical Association. So one of the things we've encountered is that Zionist groups particularly target professional organizations, which is why there's a complete failure of doctors to be saying anything about murdered and disappeared doctors and the unprecedented number of healthcare workers. So in terms of advocacy within the health establishment, I don't know if there's advice, avenues. I mean, it just seems of the many disappointments, we talk a lot about the disappointment of law, right, the double standard of law, but then there's a double standard of health as well, right?
Yes, of course, health is a very important issue. So far, Israel has killed 1,081 Palestinian doctors, nurses, and health professionals. They've injured 3,000. And they arrested no less than 258, of whom 2 doctors, major doctors, including the head of obstetrician gynecology and orthopedics, were both killed under torture. And so the attack on medical facilities is huge. 24 hospitals were totally destroyed. More than 185 health centers. Our centers were burned to the ground of medical relief. We have a very good organization, this organization, Medical Relief. We have 76 medical teams now in Gaza, serving 200,000 people every month. And we work everywhere. We provide health care to people. We provide emergency care to injured people. We participate in vaccination systems. And although they destroyed most of our centers, we're functioning at a much greater amount than we did before. And all our teams are from Gaza. They're all from Gaza. So that's a very important power, but they attack us and they destroy the medical facilities. So yes, but I want you to understand, the power of Israel is not in the ability of using media. It's not in their narrative. Their narrative is very weak. Their power is in organization. If we are better organized, we are better organized, we can be much more effective.
Oh, I don't know. This isn't your field of expertise, but it seems to me that the Zionists have wars going on so many different places, and the resistance in Gaza is killing off Israeli soldiers. And how can they keep?
We don't have war. Did you believe them when they say they have 7 wars?
Well, what I'm saying, maybe it's not 7, maybe it's 25, maybe it's 3, but how do they?
Syria, is there a war in Syria? They attacked Syria. Nobody resisted. They occupied Syrian land without any even response. They destroyed the Syrian army completely. And nobody did anything.
Well, my question is, how do they replenish their soldiers? Are they bringing them in from other countries? Are they relying totally on?
No, they have very huge army, and they have very sophisticated weapons. Their planes can fly anywhere. Nobody can even bring them down because nobody has defense systems.
Well, I understand that.
And so they
being totally.
yeah, and they are exhausted also because they had to use their reserve too much. But what is exhausting them most now is economy. They are feeling very weak now because they have lost their construction. They've lost their building. I mean, they lost their the tourism. They lost also agricultural work because they depend on our 200,000 workers, Palestinians. Of course.
So earlier, we had a discussion with Al-Haq, and we were talking about, making Palestine a top concern for Asian peoples. China is there, South Korea, Far East, Southeast Asia, and Association of Southeast Asian Nations, that my region, Southeast Asia, 10 countries, they have not made a single statement about the genocide in Gaza. And
China did, didn't they?
not China,
China didn't use the word genocide.
no, but the ASEAN didn't even make any mention. The only leader in all of Southeast Asia that has made an issue publicly is the Hun Sen from Cambodia. He said, is it not genocide that they're killing children every morning, every day? So he's the only one. The rest, like Anwar made statements, but Anwar also made deals with Zionist companies. Airport, all the Malaysian airports are to be renovated, and then
By Israel.
is Israeli-controlled New York-based company. That was a row with the civil society. And so some of us were pushing to have a major event march in Malaysia because they will be they're chairing the ASEAN this year. And, because the way we look at it is we can spread the message of anti-imperialism and peace across Asia, at the same time promote the Palestinian cause, because we see a linkage between what the U.S. is doing using Taiwan against China. And so would you be willing and able to travel to Asia in the event some, like civil society events are planned? Because that's the same question I asked the El Haq people.
Yes, I can, and it depends on the timing, of course, but either by traveling myself or talking to you by Zoom or other ways. But I am very much willing to work with you, for sure. And I have to go.